Well, ladies and gentlemen, for the Congress party, which is convinced tonight that it is a victim in a Twitter saga, tonight what I'm going to place in front of you will make them not just look silly, but look as if they believe in lies and fakery. First, let me present to you the sequence of events and a disturbing pattern that has emerged. Firstly, 3 days after the brutal murder and alleged rape of a 9-year-old girl in Delhi, Rahul Gandhi decided to visit the family and within minutes violated the law by posting the picture of the family of the minor victim. Now, here is where the story takes a completely new turn. Acting on a complaint, Twitter blocked Rahul Gandhi's account. Note this, my dear viewers. Here the Congress party turned the focus away from the victim and the family and firmly put the attention only on itself, as if it had found some manna from heaven that could resurrect their politics and their leaders' politics. So outraged were the loyalists of Rahul Gandhi that justice for the 9-year-old girl was completely forgotten. In fact, ironically, the Congress even launched a campaign, I Am Rahul. Congress protesters took to the streets and to Twitter, against Twitter. And Rahul Gandhi even personally addressed a press conference to attack Twitter. And not just his loyalists attacking Twitter on the streets, they all reposted the same violation of law picture that was tweeted by Mr. Rahul Gandhi 40,000 times over. All this while the focus was only on the Congress party and Rahul Gandhi and his aides, who totally forgot all about the victim. And if that wasn't enough, here's where the story takes a new turn. The Congress party had responded to Twitter after action was launched, claiming they had the consent from the victim's family to post the pictures of the family. But now, when Times Now's Priyank Tripathi approached the family, this is what the victim's mother had to say. Listen to this shocker before I pose more direct questions to the Congress party.
बहुत ज़्यादा सोशल मीडिया पे भी चीज़ें चल रही हैं कि आप लोग का परमिशन लिया गया नहीं लिया। इस बारे में बताइए कि जब राहुल गांधी आए फिर क्या हुआ?
मैंने तो यही बोली थी कि हम
आप लोग गाड़ी में बैठे होते?
हाँ, तो आप चिंता मत करो, घबराओ मत, हम आपके साथ में।
तो फोटो कैसे आई आप लोग की?
हमारी बिना फोटो हमने नहीं दी थी, बिना अपनी समझ से करी थी, अपनी समझ से। ना तो हमने साइन करे, ना हमने अंगूठा लगाए। हम पढ़े लिखे नहीं है जी, दोनों मियाँ बीवी, खाली साइन करते। और जो धोखे थे ले गई होगा कोई और किसी एक थे तो हमें ध्यान नहीं है, कि हम तो बाबड़े गेबड़े हो रहे थे, हमें तो होश ही नहीं था।
बिल्कुल बेसुध हुई पड़ी थी।
हाँ, क्यों? अब बिन ने ये बोली थी हम जल्दी से जल्दी आपको इंसाफ मिलवाएंगे और कैदियों को फांसी लगवा। इतनी एक बात हम सुनो,
कोई लिखा पढ़ी नहीं हुई कि
नहीं जी, कोई लिखा पढ़ी नहीं।
Times Now's reportage clearly blows the lid of this controversy. In fact, this fakery. Congress party and Rahul Gandhi have a lot to answer for. Where did Rahul Gandhi obtain consent letter from the family if the family did not sign any document? Will the Congress party and Mr. Rahul Gandhi clarify on who exactly gave them the authorization? Will the Congress put the said consent letter in public domain to prove the authenticity? Did Congress forge this consent letter to allow Twitter to unlock Rahul Gandhi's account? When pointed out and when these questions were raised with the Congress party, all they did was obfuscate. Listen in.
जब तक राहुल जी वहां पर नहीं गए थे, किसी ने भी पार्लियामेंट तक में चर्चा नहीं करी थी और ये जो जगह थी वो पार्लियामेंट से मात्र 5 किलोमीटर दूर थी। तो राहुल जी अगर वहां पर जाते हैं और उसके बाद में क्राइम ब्रांच उसको केस को रजिस्टर करता है, उसके बाद में उसके ऊपर कार्रवाई होती है, तो क्या गलत है? किसी भी अगर पीड़ित दलित व्यक्ति को अगर जस्टिस दिलवाने के लिए अगर उसकी लड़ाई लड़ी जाए तो क्या ये राजनीति है?
ये जब कानून पूछे तो झूठ बोल देना, और आज जब पीड़ित की मां ने इस सारे विषय को बेनकाब किया है तो हम सब के सामने राजनीतिक लोग बड़े बड़े स्थानों पर बैठे हुए किस तरीके से राजनीति करते हैं, ओछी राजनीति करते हैं, उसका जीता जागता प्रमाण है।
And that brings me to the legitimate question on the Newshour tonight. After violating law, Rahul Gandhi indulges in fakery? That's the question and the debate. Kong faked consent. That's the hashtag and the debate. Coming up on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
And joining me tonight, Shazia Ilmi, national spokesperson of the BJP, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, Aryama Sundaram, senior advocate, Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst, Sanjay Jha, suspended Congress leader. But my first question goes to Sujata Paul, supporter of the Congress party and political analyst. And Sujata Paul, I want to ask you, as a woman, shouldn't we all hang our heads in shame if the victim's mother says that no consent was sought and the Congress has faked this consent just for reopening Rahul Gandhi's Twitter account? Is the Twitter account of Mr. Gandhi more important than the so-called March for Justice that Mr. Rahul Gandhi did for this 9-year-old child? I want to ask you, Sujata Paul, do we have any sense of conscience, any sense of remorse left within us? Do we even call ourselves human beings?
Exactly. We must hang our heads in shame that the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is in governance, is politicizing an issue which has got attention only because Rahul Gandhi raised that issue. Nobody else has raised that issue. And if there is a case registered, if people are talking about the issue, it is because of Rahul Gandhi. Now, there is another tweet which I mentioned earlier to you as well in another show of yours, where Amit Malviya has given away the location of a living lady who allegedly has been raped in West Bengal. No action will be taken against him. Why? If attention has been brought to this issue, the more important thing is that the government speeds up the trials, speeds up the evidence collection, speeds up the process so that the matter reaches the trial stage. It hasn't even reached there. And we are questioning Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi has brought attention to the fact that a 9-year-old girl who is a poor family's child, who was a poor family's child, has died because
she is a poor family's child. She is a poor family's child. Are you saying that me, myself, I, the family, we are such lesser mortals that we cannot question the great Mr. Rahul Gandhi, even if he fakes, even if he lies about consent from a victim's family? Dr. Anand Ranganathan, we are lowly beings. We cannot question the great Congress party. We cannot question the great Mr. Rahul Gandhi. He can go ahead and lie. He can make the victim's family into a tamasha in the entire country, but we cannot dare to question them because, after all, who are we? We don't hold any position. We don't hold any place in Latvian circuit. How can we be part of the Darbar and question the Darbar on this? Dr. Anand Ranganathan.
No, thank you. Good evening, Navika. I'm going to talk a little bit of law, and it may seem like carrying coal to Dhanbad because one of your esteemed panelists is Mr. Aryama Sundaram. But still, I'll do it because I want to give you the layman's perspective. Now, you see, ignorance of law, Mr. Jata Paul, is not an underdog. It is clear that either intelligence,
who operates his Twitter handle, totally messed up. I repeat, totally messed up. His tweet disclosing the identity of the rape victim's parents, which in turn disclosed the rape victim's identity, is in clear violation of Section 74(1) of Juvenile Justice Act 2015, as well as Section 23(2) of POCSO. Both violations incur a punishment or a jail term of up to 2 years. Let me read out Section 23(2) of the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences POCSO Act. Quote, no reports in any media shall disclose the identity of a child, including his or her name, address, photograph, family details, school, neighborhood, or any other particulars which may lead to disclosure of identity of the child, unquote. The precedence to this section, Navika, was Section 228A of IPC. And the Supreme Court, while elaborating on this issue, made it absolutely crystal clear in its 2018 Nipun Saxena versus Union of India judgment that not only publication of the name of the victim was prohibited, but also disclosure of any other matter which might make known the identity of such victim. That is also prohibited. Punishment for the offence includes imprisonment for up to 2 years and fine. The only exception is if an adult victim has no objection to her name being published or identity being disclosed. She can authorize any person in writing to disclose her name. But this is very important, Navika, just 20 seconds. In case of a deceased victim, especially minor, as was the case in this one, a court has to adjudicate if her identity directly or indirectly can be disclosed. It is not even up to the parents. So even if Rahul Gandhi got their consent legally, it doesn't matter. It is not up to the parents. And this has been made clear by the Supreme Court itself. So unless Rahul Gandhi had a court order approving the disclosure, I don't see how he can escape punishment. And I'm sorry, Ms. Sujata Paul, you are a woman. This case involves a horrible crime against a woman. I'm shocked as to how you can defend Congress and Rahul Gandhi.
Sujata Paul, I'm asking you the pointed question. If a consent was given to Twitter and the mother is saying no such consent was given, then is Rahul Gandhi lying? On national television, I want to ask you, was he lying and why was he lying?
You know, the kind of questions that were being asked of the lady today by your reporter were leading questions. If you remember, this particular same mother, no other mothers, the same mother has answered earlier saying that she had no problem with her photographs being tweeted. She said it on another channel. Now, the first time she said it is the more important thing.
The child is a minor. The deceased child is a minor. You can't show her picture or her parents' picture. That's the law of the land. What are you talking about, Sujata Paul?
Your reporter was asking leading questions.
So the fault is with my reporter. The fault is with Times Now. The fault is with everybody else except Mr. Rahul Gandhi, Shazia Ilmi. The fault is with everybody else. It is definitely not with Rahul Gandhi.
I don't know the sympathizers of Rahul Gandhi, such as Sujata Paul. Either they're confused or deluded or just shamelessly brazen, because you don't need to be an Ariman Sundaram to know the basic law regarding reportage and coverage of crimes against women and minors, such as rape and others. And we all know, and we've known it for years, and not just us, Navika, everybody, you know, the junior most reporter, the youngsters today know that you can't do this. And the fact of the matter is that Rahul Gandhi has had a fair amount of legislative experience. He has been an MP long enough not to know this. It is shameful, first of all, to go and you do political tourism over rape, to use a girl's body as a political tool for your political mileage. I think this is the most disgusting of all. And I think it's shameful, Sujata.
You are shameful that none of the
quiet, ma'am. No. Do not heckle me. Do not heckle me. Be quiet. No, ma'am. Do not speak over me. I did not speak over you. Do not speak over me. Do not speak over me. Do not speak over me, ma'am. No, Navika, you'll have to ask this lady to behave herself.
Have you done it?
Navika, please ask this lady to
Sujata Paul, I would have welcomed your outrage if the outrage was about Rahul Gandhi's lies. I would have welcomed your outrage if you had outrage about the fact that Rahul Gandhi somewhere forgot the victim and the family of the victim and turned the entire spotlight to his fight with Twitter, to putting the pictures 40,000 times over through his followers. But you've forgotten, you made a spectacle of this little girl and her family. And Sujata Paul, you want to speak over everybody. You have no sense of remorse. You have no sense of, you know, even feeling some sensitivity as a woman. Forget the politics of it. Aurat to hai aap.
Rahul Gandhi
Get a justice. Are you getting a justice? Why is Mr. Nadda making an
My dear, is this your way? Is this your way to get justice for that victim? Very fantastic way of getting justice. Aryama Sundaram. 1 minute, Sujata Paul. Shazia, I'm coming to you. Shazia, I'm coming to you only because justice implored here is the justice point I'm taking to Mr. Aryama Sundaram. And Mr. Aryama Sundaram, I want to ask you. Sujata Paul's argument is that we are not fighting for the justice of the victim, but actually Rahul Gandhi is. Is this how you fight for justice, by breaking the law of the land, which actually impacts the same victim you are fighting for?
Well, let me tell you, Navika, the whole problem here is that to get political mileage, a politician today is willing to go to any extent. He's willing to go that extra mile which he ought not to go. Now, here is a case where, very well, he had a very good motive. He ought to have then canvassed the matter with the authorities who were concerned with it, ensured that an FIR was filed, seen that all that was done. But instead, that extra step for political mileage was taken. He went, got himself photographed with the parents. He had an interview with them. He promised them help, etc. Now, the point I think everybody seems to be missing here, especially when they're trying to defend Mr. Gandhi's actions, is this, that she's a minor. And as a minor, there is no question of a consent being got of the parents. Secondly, she's also deceased. While so, the question of consent does not arise. The point is that he is a legislator. He ought to know the law. I presume everybody is expected. They say there's ignorance of law is no excuse. Everyone is meant to know the law. The least I would expect is that a prime ministerial aspirant would know the law. And the fact of the matter is, what saddens me is that while I ignore, if at all, the motive was, as is being put, for Mr. Gandhi to see that this girl, perpetrator of the crime on her, were brought to book to ensure that justice was done, I laud it. But the manner in which it was done, the aim to get political mileage out of it, I'm afraid I have to decry it. And it's as simple as this. What was done was completely against the law. And what was done against the law was by a legislator who is assumed to know the law, especially if he is a prime ministerial aspirant.
I want to ask you, Mr. Tehseen Poonawalla.
Can I come in?
Do you still have something to defend? Do you still have something to defend in this? Lies and fakery?
Absolutely.
Of a permission and complete disregard for the law?
I agree with the... I agree with the senior counsel that politicians can go to any extent to get publicity. Like Prime Minister Modi said, remember Nirbhaya when you vote for me, and he tweeted this picture of Nirbhaya's parents, which Justice Lokur very clearly in the Supreme Court said, even if the victim is deceased, you cannot reveal the identity of the victim. So I agree with you. I also hope as passionately you take up the case of why the Delhi police has not been suspended for forcefully cremating the Dalit girl. And I also hope you will take up the case with the National Commission for Scheduled Caste that tweeted the same picture and its members and say that they too should be barred. I hope you do that passionately. Thank you.
Shazia Ilmi.
Tehseen, you're skating on really thin ice because Prime Minister never used Nirbhaya's parents. And in fact, it was Nirbhaya's parents who came out. Nirbhaya's parents came out and they became the voice.
He said, and I quote him. He said, and I quote him.
He did not tweet or
Nirbhaya ko yaad karte BJP ko vote do.
Yes,
I quote him. He said it. Here, picture released by PIB. Picture released by PIB.
I don't want to get into a slanging match with you.
PIB.
I don't want to get into a slanging match with you.
He said, Nirbhaya ko yaad karo aur Bhajpa ko vote do.
What's wrong with that?
Nirbhaya ko yaad karo aur Bhajpa ko vote do. I quote him.
No, but the fact of the matter was that he did not go to Nirbhaya's house.
You agree. Thank you.
Photo opportunity.
Say the Prime Minister. Say the Prime Minister should be ashamed.
Only for political mileage.
Say the Prime Minister should be ashamed.
Only for political mileage. That's what he did. He refused to delete the tweet.
What is this?
And he made it about freedom of expression.
What is this?
He made it about 19 million users not being able to access the truth, which can only emanate from Rahul Gandhi's
giving his hand like he's some king to them.
No, this is not about that. This is not about that. You know what the topic is? This is not about the Prime Minister.
It's not about that.
And
It's what suits you.
Nirbhaya's parents came on record and they became the voice of women's emancipation. They spoke against rape. Nirbaya's
Please
mother
understand what
today
Anand said about
speaks about
consent.
it.
Read 228A.
She did,
Please
no,
read
no,
what
the
Justice
fact of
Lokur
the matter
said.
was that
Consent
she
is
was
not
on every
acceptable.
channel.
Justice
Tehseen
Lokur
Poonawala,
said Supreme
Tehseen
Court.
Poonawala,
Please
you want to
understand
take
it.
Anand Ranganathan coming in. Anand
Yes.
Ranganathan coming in. Yes, Anand.
Yes, thank you, thank you. No, I can't quite remember which of the two Poonawala brothers are lawyers. Is it Shehzad or is it Tehseen? But going by the evidence at hand, I think it has to be Shehzad. Tehseen, what are you talking about? When you talk of Nirbhaya, was that the real name? No, it wasn't. B, she was not minor. The POCSO Act for minor clearly states that even parents consent.
Do you know the name of the...
Please don't
do you know
interrupt.
the-
Hey, no,
okay. Allow me to
Navika,
answer
this is
that.
unfair.
Allow me to answer that. Okay, so allow me to answer
No,
that.
please, let me finish.
Because
Let me
no,
finish.
Anand, I'll
Let
tell
me
you why.
finish.
Well,
You don't know
one
the
minute.
9-year-old
Minute. Allow him to make his point. Allow him to make his point. You will get your turn to make your counter. Allow him to make his point, Tehseen Poonawala.
Yes,
Keep your
very
bulldozer locked in for a while.
Sure.
थैंक यू मेरा घर भी अंबुजा सीमेंट से बना हुआ है नाविका इतनी जल्दी नहीं टूटेगा नहीं बट दो पॉइंट्स हैं नंबर 1 तहसीन इज डूइंग वॉट अबाउटरी टू रॉन्ग्स डोंट मेक अ राइट उसमें भी मैंने बता दिया कि मोदी इज नॉट एट फॉल्ट बिकॉज़ निर्भया वाज नॉट द रियल नेम शी वाज नॉट अ माइनर नंबर 2 how does it matter we are talking about Rahul Gandhi having violated 2 laws and I quoted to you the Supreme Court judgment that says that even parents consent की बात तो हो ही नहीं सकती it is not up to the parents The Rahul Gandhi would have to get a consent from the court, Tehseen. You are a lawyer, aren't you? I quoted to you 2018 Nipun Saxena versus Union judgment. Please tell me Supreme Court is also wrong. Tell me, आज क्या तो Supreme Court भी गलत है.
Please reply to you.
Don't do this. Please don't do this.
Can I reply to you?
Yes. Respond.
Can I reply to you?
Respond.
Now, please allow me to reply to you.
Please,
Thank you.
please carry
I
on.
also, Anand Ranganathan, quoted to you Justice Lokur. Thank you. I also quoted to you Justice Lokur in the Honorable Supreme Court, where he says for any rape victim, even the parents' consent, even if she's deceased, is not allowed. Now the Prime Minister has tweeted the picture of Nirbhaya's parents, and while Nirbhaya is not the real name, Rahul Gandhi has not revealed the name of the 9-year-old girl. So it's the same. It's apples for apples. Oranges
So we
for
should
oranges.
thank
On the
Mr. Rahul
contrary, Prime
Gandhi.
Minister Modi
So we
said,
should thank
"Remember
Mr.
Nirbhaya
Rahul
when you
Gandhi
vote
that
for
he
me."
has not revealed
Remember
the name of the
Nirbhaya
girl,
and vote for
and
me.
therefore
Remember Nirbhaya
this
and vote for
country
me.
is thankful to
No,
him.
thank Modi.
So the consent has been faked. The law has been disregarded.
No, but Rahul went beyond that. Rahul said that he sought the consent. And the parents of the girl are saying
copy of an FIR which was tweeted
ये photograph.
by Amit Malviya.
Sujata ji,
About a woman
please
who
do
was
not
raped.
speak. Please do not be an apologist for Rahul Gandhi. You really must apologize not just to the girl's parents, but to the entire country for being so shameless and hungry.
1 minute, while Sujata Paul, 1 minute, Sujata Paul, allow me to come in. Shazia Ilmi, Amit Malviya tweeted something, he was wrong.
Yes.
He should have been
And can I
acted
say
upon.
something?
Number two,
Yes, I would answer that. Can I
number
answer
two,
that?
Shazia
Can I answer
Ilmi.
that?
Number
I
two,
would answer
if Twitter against the Supreme Court judgment, against the
So two
POCSO
things.
rule, 1 minute, allow me to complete, against the POCSO rules and the Juvenile Justice Act and the Supreme Court judgment, if Twitter has reopened Rahul Gandhi's account based on a consent letter, whether it is fraudulent or not, the fact of the matter is that Twitter should be taken to task as well. Now,
So first things
I want to
first.
ask you, Shazia Ilmi, you can't dance with Twitter when it is against Rahul Gandhi, and you cannot be against it when it is against your own BJP minister, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. So tell us,
nobody is-
as per the law of the land,
You finish
if
your question, I'll
Twitter
answer.
has agreed to reopen Rahul Gandhi's account based on the consent letter fraudulently obtained, will the
Okay, so
government
first of
act
all-
against Twitter?
So first of all, we don't have to fence with Twitter, and neither do we have to tango with Twitter. 2. Secondly, Amit Malviya posted the interview of Hathras victim of a television interview, because of which his Twitter account was suspended. Just by the way, and he deleted that, and he did not protest because it was wrong. And then you talk about be quiet, Sujata. You're screaming. I'm saying something. Please, let me finish saying what I'm saying. You stop. Let me finish saying what I'm saying. Please be quiet for a minute. I'm making a point. On Hathras, his account was deleted and he did not protest. And that was before it was proven it was a rape, because the girl was saying that it was an honor killing. The mother was saying. Two, in the West Bengal case, the girls themselves came forth and said our cases are not being registered. This was a 17-year-old girl who was gang raped because her family voted BJP. And they had to go to Supreme Court because West Bengal government refused to that is what we were talking about. That is why they
Well, even as we speak, Facebook has issued an ultimatum to Rahul Gandhi to remove the video from Instagram. The video disclosed the identity of victim's kin. That's the latest we are getting on this entire issue. Facebook has sent this notice that has been sent to Facebook as well from the NCPCR. So Facebook and the Instagram video also has to be taken off. Now, I want to ask you, Sanjay Jha, look at the vociferous defense of Rahul Gandhi. You can defend on political issues. I have no problems. Your politics has to be different from the BJP's politics. I have no issues about that. Beat up each other for all we care. And we've seen that beating up each other on the floor of the parliament itself. But on the issue of a rape victim, alleged rape victim, and a minor victim at that, look at the way Mr. Rahul Gandhi violates the law. Number one, tweets the picture. Then when Twitter suspends his account, 40,000 of his supporters retweet the same picture showing the faces of the parents. Now, if that is defiance, you could do that as a child with your parents, but you can't do this about a rape victim and one who's lost her life as well. And then, Sanjay Jha, it all, the victim was lost somewhere. Where was the fight for justice for the victim? It all became about the Twitter fight that Mr. Rahul Gandhi was having, the freedom of speech that he was having, his loyalists, his protests on the street, and then about the restoration through a consent letter.
His 90 million followers.
I want to ask you, Sanjay Jha, have we lost complete visuals or a vision about justice for that child? Is this loss of perspective completely? Has our conscience also died in the middle of it somewhere?
Well, Navika, I think a valid question. First and foremost, a barbaric, savage, heinous murder of an innocent child. I mean, all of us need to hang our heads in shame collectively as a country. I have two short responses, actually. What Rahul Gandhi did right, in my opinion, was to visit the family and bring this very ugly case into the public spotlight. This is what political leaders ought to do, especially when the government seems to be very, very intent on actually keeping it under wraps. But I will agree with you that the law is a law is a law. And I do believe that whether you're Mr. Rahul Gandhi or Prime Minister Modi or Mr. Sundaram or Navika, you yourself or me, none of us is above the law. And I do believe that there are certain acts, and I think responsible spokespersons here, including Anand, have mentioned that there is an act, there is a rule. And I don't think anybody can be an exception to that. So I think there is nothing wrong. One of the things, Navika, in politics that we need to is for politicians to say, I screwed up, I made a mistake. And, it's something that I apologize for. It's okay. So I feel if the Congress is trying to defend it, it's wrong. It was good of the Congress to bring it into the domain so that everybody talks about it. But to violate the law, I'm sorry, sir, you can't do that.
No, violate the law and then say lies that we've taken a consent when there is no consent. Yes. And in any case, the Supreme Court doesn't think that it is up to the parents to give the consent. I'm asking you, 40,000 people retweeting the same picture. Mm-hmm. Is that misplaced defiance? Who are you hurting? The kid?
I do believe, Ravika, I totally agree with you that the Congress party, I've been part of the party for a long time, needs to be aware of these sensitivities. Everything is not about making a loud statement, or it doesn't have to be a big, hype and hoop, hullabaloo about it. You can make your point without actually violating the law. I think that's the beauty of a democracy. So I think the Congress should have done due diligence. I don't think Rahul Gandhi ought to be aware himself, but maybe whoever is handling his account should have done their homework
Just 10
thoroughly.
seconds.
Because you end up embarrassing the
Dr.
man.
Anand Ranganathan, you know, how convenient for Mr. Rahul Gandhi is freedom of speech. You know, when it comes to the toolkit tweets, leaders tweeted, the manipulated media, then the Congress hailed Twitter that, you know, they've called out BJP netas. Then again, when Twitter blocked IT Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad's account for an hour or two, you know, they hailed, you know, what a powerful medium. But when it comes to them, Twitter is biased. And then the trending on Twitter, Twitter BJP se darta hai ya Twitter Modi se darta hai. You know, what kind of politics is this?
No, absolutely. But first of all, can I please applaud my good friend Sanjay Jha? I mean, he's really said it, and I totally agree with him. Well done, Sanjay. And can I also please castigate my other good friend Tehseen for bringing in Narendra Modi when he knows himself that Narendra Modi did not disclose the identity. The identity of Nirbhaya was disclosed by her parents in 2012. Narendra Modi, everyone, all of India, in fact, even knew the real name of Nirbhaya. Maybe at that point of time, the Supreme Court had not adjudicated. The POCSO Act knew that, the succession of 228 hadn't come. I don't know. But the fact is, everyone knew Nirbhaya's identity because the parents had disclosed it on a TV channel. Not only her identity, but also her real name. I don't know whether I am allowed to take that or not, but that's a separate question.
Allow me to respond.
But Tehseen, you have to forget about whataboutery. You have to come and
you're
say,
wrong on facts.
As brave as Sanjay is, nobody is above the law. Rahul Gandhi violated the present law, period. He must be put to jail. Accept it.
Well,
okay, allow me to respond.
Yes,
Allow
yes,
me to
Tehseen,
respond.
you still have
allow me to
something
respond.
to
I think I
defend
should be allowed
Rahul
to
with.
respond. Anand, yes. One second. I am saying, Mr. Modi said in 2019, remember Nirbhaya when you vote for BJP. In 2018, Justice Lokur said, and I quote him, even if the parents give consent for a dead, deceased, rape victim, you're not allowed to disclose the name. And Prime Minister tweeted the picture. So I am saying Rahul Gandhi is wrong, as is Prime Minister Modi. Both should be in jail. You have the guts to say it? Now say it.
Okay, now let me answer this. For 7 years, you are saying, Tehseen, for 7 years, the whole of India, including Supreme Court judges, knew Nirbhaya, knew her identity, knew her real name, knew her parents who had disclosed it. But you are putting Modi in the dock. Now let me throw a challenge to you. I think Modi should go to jail if you are right. If he did indeed disclose identity that 1.3 billion people already knew it. But will you agree with me that if Rahul Gandhi has violated the POCSO Act here, which he has, Mr. Sundaram also says, I also gave the Supreme Court judgment, then he should go to jail for 2 years? Do you have the guts to admit that?
Yes. Come on, Tehseen Poonawalla. Do you have the guts?
Hear me out. Of course, anyone who violates the law should go to jail. Ask Amit Shah ji to stop snoozing and start acting. Delhi police.
Well. What about tree is the degree Mr. Tehseen Poonawalla holds, and that is exactly what he will keep giving, as do Congress spokespersons who carry this degree of what about tree. Clearly, ladies and gentlemen, this is once again a demonstration of how it's never about the pain of the people of this country. It's always about politics. And that's what Mr. Rahul Gandhi has upheld and shown and displayed. First, made a complete spectacle of this young girl and her family, and then made it all about himself and his politics, and then fakery, lies, breaking the law, not just once, but 40,000 times over. And that's what called successful politics, Mr. Rahul Gandhi. That's what called political bravado, Mr. Rahul Gandhi. Up against whom? A 9-year-old dead child? Are you using her to resurrect your political career? How sad can you get? Thank you for joining me on the News Hour, debate number 1. Taking a short break, debate number 2 on the other side.